Hello everyone. So we'll talk about exchange rates. So nominal exchange rate is the price of one country's currency in terms of another country's currency. In other words, it tells us how much foreign currency we can receive in exchange for 1 unit of domestic currency. So as we can see here, 1 Canadian dollar equals to 0.79 US dollars. So we have the nominal exchange rate is what we commonly know. Now we'll go to real exchange rate. It is the rate at which goods and services in one country can be exchanged for goods and services in another country. It is usually calculated using price indexes. And then this is just the formula for real exchange rate, where the uppercase E is the nominal exchange rate and the P is the price index. We'll talk more about here, where we show an example using Big Mac. So a Big Mac costs $5.50 CAD in Canada, while $4.50 USD in the United States. Currently, the nominal exchange rate is 0.79 USD for 1 CAD. Now, these are just the variables. We have the nominal exchange rate, price index domestic, and the price index foreign, as can be seen here. When we input them to the real exchange rate formula, we get 0.966. So what does this mean? It means that we can get 0.966 Big Mac in the US for 1 Big Mac in Canada. So it focuses more on the goods and services, which will be shown in this summary. So nominal exchange rate, it is very important for financial transactions where the goal is to earn a return or hedge a payment. While the real exchange rate, it is very important for trade in goods and services. We can better differentiate it using these examples here. So if nominal exchange rate is 1.2, it means that if you exchange a $100 note, you will get the amount of 120 in the foreign country. Now, while if real exchange rate is also 1.2, it means that for a given amount of money after exchanging currency, you can get 20% more goods and services in the foreign country. So as can be seen, this nominal is in terms of currency, while real is in terms of goods and services. Now with that, we can talk about the advantages of real exchange rate. It gives a better measure of prices of Canadian or domestic goods relative to the prices of foreign goods than nominal exchange rate, as we've seen from before. Also, because it has a better measure of prices, is used for when economists and policymakers want to gauge the effect of a change in exchange rates on Canadian or domestic exports and imports. Okay, so now we have that. Now we'll go to supply and demand model. As we can see here, we have the supply and demand model for exchange rate. So we'll consider Canadian dollars since it'll be much more simple. So the supply for Canadian dollars, the lower the Canadian demand for foreign goods, services, and assets, the lower the supply of Canadian dollars on the foreign exchange market. So as you can see here, supply, if there is a higher exchange rate, there is an excess supply of dollars, which is can be seen here. Now, the demand for Canadian dollars, so the higher the demand for Canadian goods, services, and assets, so the higher the demand for Canadian dollars, which makes sense since you need Canadian dollars to buy Canadian goods, services, and assets, which can be seen here. So if the exchange rate is lower than the equilibrium, there is an excess demand of dollars, of Canadian dollars in this sense. So this is just a simple rule. Anything that makes Canadian goods, services, or assets more attractive relative to foreign ones, it shifts the demand curve to the right and the supply curve to the left. Now, these are just the factors that shift the demand supply curve of the Canadian dollar. So the ratio of Canadian to foreign prices, these are just like exchange rates. The difference between domestic and foreign interest rates, so these are the spread of interest rates. And then a shift in the demand toward Canadian goods and services. Now let's take a look at that. This is the demand curve shift to the right. As you can see here, it increases the exchange rate. What shifts it to the right? Lower Canadian prices relative to foreign prices, higher Canadian interest rate or a lower foreign interest rate, and then a demand in Canada or around the world, it shifts toward Canadian goods, services, and assets. Now we also know that it also shifts the supply curve to the left, and then vice versa for when demand curve shift to the left. Now this is just an example. Suppose workers in Canada has improved their ways in manufacturing export products. This means that the quality of Canadian exports has increased greatly. How would this particular event impact the value of Canadian dollar? So the main focus here is the quality of Canadian exports. It has increased. So as we know, if the quality increase, it becomes more attractive relative to foreign ones. Many people want to buy them. They demand them. So demand for Canadian dollars increase since you need Canadian dollars to buy these ones, and then a demand curve shifts to the right. And then if many people demand it, many people buy these Canadian exports, so there is a decrease in supply. Supply curve shifts to the left. Okay, thank you.